In this video, we are going to look at finding the vertex of a parabola. As a reminder, the vertex is that very special point that's either at the very bottom of the parabola or the very top of the parabola. So keep in mind that the vertex is an ordered pair. It's an X and a Y. And there is a line that cuts the parabola into two equal parts. And that line is called the axis of symmetry. And the equation for that line is x is equal to some number. And that number corresponds to the x-coordinate in the vertex. So whether the parabola is pointing up or it's pointing down, it has this special line of symmetry that I often just refer to as the AOS. And again, it's x is equal to whatever number is the x-coordinate in your vertex. Another thing to keep in mind with your parabola is that when you have a parabola that's pointing up, the vertex is the minimum point. It is the lowest y value. It has the lowest y value, so we call that a minimum. But when your vertex is pointing down, when your parabola is pointing down, the vertex is at a maximum. It has the highest y value you can have. Okay, so let's go about finding our vertex. So when you have a quadratic equation and it's y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, the vertex formula for your x-coordinate is x is equal to negative b over 2a. So the a and the b come from your coefficients of the equation, just like they did when you were working with the quadratic formula. And the y value is this fancy notation that says f of negative b over 2a. To find your y, it just really means plug your x into the equation. That's how you find your y. That's what this fancy notation means. Plug in x into the equation to find y. So let's go about using this formula to find some vertexes of a quadratic equation. So we're going to, for the following parabolas, we're going to find the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and whether the parabola opens upward or downward. All right, so our first equation is y is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 3. So we'll do it in that order. We'll find the vertex, the AOS, and then we'll talk about how it opens. So remember that we're looking for our formula is x is equal to negative b over 2a, and then our y is f of negative b over 2a, which again, that's just really fancy notation for plugging your x to find y. So in our parabola, our a is an understood 1, and our b is a negative 8. So using the formula, x is equal to negative b, so negative and then negative 8, all over 2 times 1. So a negative and a negative make a positive 8 over 2, so x is equal to 4. So the x-coordinate in our vertex is 4. Now to find y, we're just going to plug in our x into the equation. So it's going to be 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 3. So 4 squared 16 minus 32 plus 3. 16 minus 32 is negative 16 plus 3, which is negative 13. So our y coordinate is negative 13. So this is where our vertex is on the graph. So an AOS is the x-coordinate in your vertex. So our line is going to be x is equal to 4. And to determine whether your parabola points up or down has to do with whether A is positive or if A is negative. If A is positive, then it's going to point up. You can kind of think about a smile. If you're positive, you've got your smile pointing up. If you're negative, you kind of have a frown. It's pointing down. So our A here is a positive 1, which means our parabola is going to point upward. So it's going to look something like this. So just as a reminder, my vertex would be here at the bottom. So in this particular parabola, I would have a minimum because I have a low value. I can touch the lowest y value. If my range is going up to infinity, I'd never be able to touch the maximum because it keeps going and going. All right, number 2, we have y is equal to negative x squared minus 6x plus 7. So here we have our A is equal to negative 1 and our B is equal to negative 6. So x is equal to a negative and a negative 6 over 2 times negative 1. So negative and a negative make a positive 6 over negative 2. 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. All right, so the x-coordinate is negative 3. And keep in mind, you can already say, well, I found my vertex, if you want to do that now, because it's always the x-coordinate in your vertex. All right, now to find the y value, we're just going to plug x into our equation. So be careful. We have a negative that's in front of the x squared. Our x is negative 3, so that's what we're squaring. And then minus 6 times negative 3 plus 7. So we've got a lot of negatives going on in this equation, so you have to be very careful. So order of operations says square that number first. So a negative 3 times itself is a positive 9. But I have to bring down that negative that's in front. So I end up with a negative 9. Negative 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18 plus 7. So negative 9 plus 18 is 9, plus 7 is 16. So our y value is 16. All right, how does this open? Well, keep in mind, A has a negative. All right, so whenever it has a negative, it's going to point downward. So you could either write the word down or downward, or you could just draw the parabola pointing down. So in this particular parabola, it's pointing down, so we have a maximum value. And our maximum value would be at the y value of 16. Your maximum, the number has to do with the y value. All right, number 3, we have y is equal to 3x squared minus 6x plus 5. All right, let's just try something different on this one. Let's do the opens up or down first. Well, our A is a positive 3, so it's positive, so we know it opens upward because A is positive. So it doesn't matter what order you find this information in. That's really what I'm trying to show you here. And our B is a negative 6. So x is equal to negative 6 over 2 times A is 3. So x is equal to 6 over 6, which means x is equal to 1. So my x-coordinate is 1, and that tells me I already found my AOS. Now I'm going to plug 1 into my function to find y. So y is equal to 3 times 1 squared minus 6 times 1 plus 5. So 1 squared is 1 times 3 is 3. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 6 plus 5. 3 minus 6 is negative 3 plus 5 is 2. So y is equal to 2. All right, and our last one, y is equal to negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 1. All right, so our A is a -2. So we know because it's negative, it's going to point downward. So again, it doesn't matter if you write down, downward, or just draw a parabola pointing down. All right, our B is a +8. So x is equal to a negative and then 8 over 2 times A, which is -2. So -8 divided by -4 is equal to a +2. So the x-coordinate is 2. So y will be equal to -2 times 2 squared plus 8 times 2 minus 1. So first I have to square that pot. 2 times 2, which is 4. And then 4 times a -2 is -8. And then 8 times 2 is 16 minus 1. So y is equal to -8 plus 16 is 8 minus 1 is 7. So the y coordinate is 7. All right, and our AOS, it's always important to write it as an equation. So it's always going to be x is equal to something. And remember, it's always the x coordinate in your vertex. So x is equal to 2.